Thank you everyone for subscribing to Infinitely Productions. If you have not done so, please click the bell and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy our content.
1966, my dad was indicted in federal court for masterminding a nationwide string of bank robberies. Went to trial. After a lengthy trial, he was convicted. In 1967, my dad was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Longest sentence for a bank robbery conspiracy case ever given up to that point. 1970, he loses all his appeals. They ship him off to Leavenworth Penitentiary in Kansas to do his time. And I was devastated. My dad was 50 years old when he went in, figured he had 50 on top of that, thought he'd never come out of prison alive again. And you know, I gotta tell you, there are some perks. I mean, look, we had a lot of struggles during that time. Don't want to get into all of that at the moment, but very, very tough, you know, throughout the 60s with my dad getting in and out of prison, a lot of stuff going on, really impacted my brothers and sisters and my mother, and me too, to a degree. But there are some perks, you know, having a dad in that lifestyle. You know, I'll tell you this, I always like to honor my dad with this story. I was an athlete in school, played all three sports. My dad would never miss a game, no matter what he was doing. Mob business, legit business, I'm playing ball, he'd show up, right? Baseball was really my sport. This happens so often I'll repeat it. I'd be playing ball, I'd be up to bat, and I'd be looking for my dad. Because he'd always come late, right? I look out of the corner of my eye, here he comes. He pulls up in a big black Cadillac or a black Lincoln, that's the car he drove. For those of you my age, remember those 1960 Cadillacs? Their fin was half the size of this room. You couldn't miss him, right? So he'd never go into the parking lot, he pulls right up to the field. He gets up, he gets out of the car, always dressed sharp in a suit, didn't dress any other way. Always had 5 or 6 guys with him, he would never travel alone. So they get out of the car, they go onto the field, go up into the stands, I'm up to bat, I kid you not. The umpire took one look at that crew, never called strike 3 on me. I used to say, hey Pop, you're very good for my batting average. I played football, nobody would tackle me when he was in the stands. Good to have a dad and a mom who can play sports, right? So anyway, there it is, 1970, after he loses all his appeals, they ship him off to Leavenworth Penitentiary in Kansas to do his time. I'm a pre-med student, Hofstra University, was going to be a doctor, that's what my dad wanted for me, and I was devastated, like I said. And at that time, Joe Colombo had started the Italian-American Civil Rights League, if you remember, some of you. I was the first day on the picket line when we started picketing the FBI on 69th Street and 3rd Avenue. I looked at it as a way to help my dad out, because people, I want to tell you this. My dad obviously did his things in that life, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But that particular crime that he went to jail for and did all that time for, my dad was innocent of. He was no bank robber. I'll take that to my grave. We spoke to every witness. They recanted their testimony. We gave them lie detector tests, proved they lied at the trial. We could never get the conviction overturned. Went up to the Supreme Court on certiorari issues. In my dad's case, we had so many appeals, could never get the conviction overturned. And it's one message that I give our young people today. Listen. The system's not always fair. You put that bullseye on your back, you get in their crosshairs, you're going to go down at some point in time. You know, that's it. The best way to avoid it, stay away from it. That's it. You know, a lot of things I tell these young people too, you know, I don't have to tell you this. Life is tough enough when everything is good. Everything is going great. You know, doing the right thing in your life, all is good. And all of a sudden you have a pandemic. God forbid an illness, something in this crazy country that's going on now, inflation, a million things can happen when everything is good. And I tell them, if you do the wrong thing, you suffer so many consequences, you put more baggage on your back to carry around. It gets very, very tough. I can't tell you how many times I visit prisons, and I talk to some of the men, encouraging them, and guys look at me, Michael, look at me, I'm 55, 57, 58, 60 years old. I get out of here, what am I going to do with my life? It's tough. We got one shot at this, and we got to try our best, you know, to do it without bringing a lot of baggage on our back. And believe me, I know about that. So, Joe Colombo, He kind of takes me under his wing. I start to meet a lot of my dad's friends on the picket line. Mike, what are you doing going to school? If you don't help your old man out, he's going to die in prison. I'm very affected by that. I go see Dad in Leavenworth. We're in the visiting room. Dad, I'm not going to go to school anymore. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. No, son, I didn't want this for you. We go back and forth, back and forth. I was pretty headstrong as a kid. And he looked at me and he said, okay, but if you're going to be on the street, I want you on the street the right way. In his mind, the right way was to become a member of his life. He said to me, go home, somebody's going to be in touch with you. Do whatever you're told. And that was the only instruction my dad gave me. You know, one of the many things that I loved and admired about my dad is he never brought what was going on in the outside world into the house. Everything I knew about my dad from observation, from the media, from others, never from his lips. You know, he was like it didn't even exist out there. With all the trouble that he had, that's how he dealt with it. You know, all the time. And that night, he didn't give me any preparation. You know, that life is a secret life. You're not supposed to talk about the life with anybody outside of the life. And if my dad was anything, he was a good soldier. He wouldn't do that even with me, his own son. Go home, do what you're told. Obviously, you know, he knew I had it in me. And that was it. And I didn't question him. Hey, Dad, anything you want me to do, just point me in that direction, and I'm ready to go. And that was it. That was it, because I had blind faith in what my father wanted for me. About 2 weeks later, captain in the family picks me up, takes me to see the boss. Many of you know Joe Colombo had been shot, seriously wounded, eventually died from the wounds. A new boss had taken over, Tom DeBella, he's passed on now. I sat with Tom. Mike, I got a message from your father. He said you want to become a member of this life, is that true? I said yes. He said, here's the deal. From now on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're on call to serve this family. That means if your mother is sick and dying, and she calls you to service, and you're at her bedside, you leave your mother, you come and serve us. From now on, we're number one in your life before anything and everything. When and if we feel you deserve this privilege, this honor to become a member, we'll let you know. And I was 21 years old at the time. And that's something I took very seriously back then, people. And I want to tell you something. The reason I say I'm not here to glorify the life, but I can tell you this. I met a lot of better guys on the street than I see in our government today, that's for sure. And I really mean that. You know, I really mean that. And the reason I say that, there was a lot of respect that we had for one another. Now, don't get me wrong. Things happen. I saw things happen for the wrong reason. We're on the street. We're not angels. We don't pray. We don't pretend to be. We don't take an oath and say, hey, we're going to benefit the people that elected us or put us in power. What I see going on today, I'm telling you, it's worse than what I ever seen on the street. And I really mean that. I really mean that. I don't want to get into the politics because you see, I get into it a little bit on the YouTube channel, and some people yell at me. They say, Mike, stay in your lane. I said, okay, thank you for that. But anyway, you're going to hear me speak out because let me tell you some people, I want to tell you this. I have 7 children. I have 7 grandchildren. One just born 2 weeks ago. Praise God. Thank you. And the good thing about this one, the first one born to my son, a boy, Jet. Call him Jet. What are they getting in these people with these new names? Anyway, Jet MichaelFranzese, but my other 6 are from my daughters. So this is the first one that'll carry the Franzese name. I'm very happy about that. But and I'm 72 years old. What are they going to do to me? But I'm worried about my kids and my grandchildren, the future of this country. We got some rough stuff going on, and I just hope it gets straightened out. So if I have to speak out about it, I will, just to enlighten people, at least give them my perspective coming from the street and what I see, and hopefully, you know, that we get this thing straightened out at some point in time. But anyway, you know, I don't want to get into it too much. You want to do that in the Q&A? I'm ready to go. So just bring it up. Yeah, I'm ready. But so where was I? Anyway, yeah. So. I'm 21 years old, and I'm in kind of like a pledge period, recruit, where I had to do anything and everything I was told to do to prove myself worthy. And, you know, a lot of menial stuff in that life, you know, a lot of respect, a lot of discipline. You had a meeting at 8 o'clock, you weren't there at 7:30, you were late. Can never be late in that life. Drive the boss to a meeting. Sit in the car 3, 4, 5 hours. God forbid you leave, you go to the restroom, you get a newspaper, he comes out, you're not there, you're in trouble. I know I did that once, and I paid for it. A lot of stuff like that. And look, I want to be very honest with you tonight because I need you to understand where I'm coming from. That life at times is very violent. And if you're part of the life, you're part of the violence, and there's no escape. And if anybody tells you differently, they either weren't a made guy in that life or they're just not being honest with you, and I think you know what I mean. After about 2.5 years, I proved myself worthy in their eyes. Halloween night, 1975, I was called into a room with 5 other gentlemen. That night we all took an oath and became sworn, made members of the Colombo family. And I'll tell you this, I took that oath very seriously back then. I take it very seriously tonight, even though I don't consider myself a member of that life anymore. You come into the life, you don't sign a contract, there's no retirement age, you can't say, hey, I'm done. You know what they say? They say when you leave that life, you either leave in a coffin or join the government and enter a witness protection program. Obviously, I've done neither. Very solemn ceremony, dimly lit room late at night. They wanted you to understand the seriousness of what you were getting involved in. The 6 of us walked into the room individually, boss seated at the head of like a horseshoe configuration, underboss, consigliere to his left and right. All the captains were alongside of them. We had about 15 in our family at that point in time. Walked down the aisle, stood in front of the boss, held out my hand, took a knife, cut my finger, some blood dropped on the floor. This is a blood oath. I cupped my hands, took a picture of a saint, Catholic altar card, put it in my hands and lit it aflame. Didn't hurt, it burnt quickly, it was merely symbolic. And he said to me, tonight, MichaelFranzese, you are born again into a new life, into Cosa Nostra. Violate what you know about this life, betray your brothers, and you will die and burn in hell like the saint is burning in your hands. Do you accept? Yes, I do. The other 5 guys were in the room, they all took the oath. You come into the life, you come in as a soldier. I was motivated to do 2 things. 1, get my dad out of prison. And by the way, I did get him out after 10 years on parole. And just to finish the story of my dad was in and out. He did 40 years on the 50. 40. He was in and out 5 times, each time on a parole violation, and each time for associating with another felon, somebody alleged to be an organized crime. You can't do that when you're, on that list. When I was on parole, I had 526 people on my separation list. Feds actually give you lists, people you can't associate with. Some of them on the list I never heard of. Some of them were dead. They don't even let you go to the cemetery and meet with anybody. Feds are tough, right? And my father would, he'd come out, he thought he was being covert, they'd surveil him, they locked him up 5 times. His last violation, he was 91 years old. I go to see him in the prison. I said, Dad, this is getting ridiculous. Come on, man, you're 91 years old. You gotta stop meeting people. He said to me, son, what do you want me to do? I don't know anybody. It's a felon, not a felon. Even you're a felon. I said, I know that, Dad, but you're allowed to see me. It took me 2 years to get off his list. I was number 1 on his list. Feds are tough. You don't want to mess with them. But the sad thing about that, I think they gave him a year on that violation. He gets out, and at the age of 93, he gets indicted again on another case, goes to trial, gets convicted, and they give him another 8 years at the age of 93. Right? My dad was released from prison in 2017 at the age of 100. He was the oldest inmate in the federal system at the time of his release. Amen. And unfortunately, my dad passed away at the age of 103. And he was the oldest living made guy in America for sure. I believe maybe the whole world. I don't think anybody has that kind of a run in that life. I got to tell you that. But he was sorely missed. And look, my dad and I had some disagreements, no doubt about it. But in the end, we got it together as best as we possibly could. Obviously, he wasn't happy when I walked away, but we had a pretty deep discussion about it at one point in time. And he would never say it publicly, but privately he understood. And I believe he was happy for me. But
thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.